Hey there, fellow classic comic collector. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm excited to bring you a convention report. Yes, it's an unconventional convention report, though. This is the first convention that I've been to in 2 years. Uh, but it's not your typical convention because this is Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo 2021 Mice. Uh, Sort of. It's mini mice. So, Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo is a convention for people like me who make their own comics. People of all sorts of different skill levels. Some are professionals, some are complete amateurs, and they have the show where you can go and you bring all of the comics and sell to people who appreciate this sort of handmade passion projects. It's a very different feel from your big comic conventions. It's different even to some degree from Artist Alley because it's the entire point of the show is self-published, uh, indie, like super indie books by people who just make their own comics. So if you go to a big show, those people will be in Artist Alley, but from our end, those of us that are have tables at Artist Alley, people don't typically go to the shows to buy that stuff. So you can sit there all day and nobody cares, nobody comes. But that's not the way it works at Mice. Everybody that's going to this show is there specifically to support independent creators, and so it's like the best show you can really get to anywhere in the area here, if you're a creator like me. Unfortunately, I didn't have a table. Um, uh, so a little bit about Mice. Last year the show had to be canceled. They did some virtual stuff online, but because of the pandemic, it was canceled. This year they were able to put it on, but it's what they called mini Mice. And that's because they had to do it outdoors because of COVID. They had a much smaller area, which means a lot fewer vendors. So what they did was really interesting. It's a 2-day show, but each day was a completely different lineup of creators that they could showcase twice as many people. It was 32 each day. That means there's still only 64 total creators. Normally at Mice, you're looking at probably 3 times that many, that you're all jammed into this building. I applied to Mice 2 years ago, the last time they had the full convention, and I did not get accepted. Applied again this year, and again did not get accepted. It's a little frustrating because Mice is a it's not a lottery. Small Press Expo is like Mice, but even larger. It's like a national thing, and that's held, I think, down in Baltimore. That's that's like a lottery draw. Everyone that applies, as long as you're making comics yourself, it's an equal chance. Mice, it's actually curated, and so they choose who they want to have there. So it can be kind of disappointing to be passed over. But I love going because I get so inspired by seeing all the people there making comics because they love making comics. And there's some great stuff you can get there. There's also like the most basic level comics that you can get, people just like drawing stuff in their notebook and photocopying it and then just stapling the photocopies together. I'm actually going to show you one of those in just a second. And so it's a celebration of the medium and everybody there, whether you're buying or selling. It's all about loving the form of comics. So that's why I love it so much. I do have some stuff to show off, and I do have a little bit of video here that I've been showing. I had a really good time. I got maybe a little bit less this year than previous years, but that's mainly because there were fewer creators. So let me just show you what I did get. My wife was also there with me, and she got a big pile of stuff as well. There was a little bit of overlap, but for the most part, we got very different things. And I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about some things about the show that I found interesting and about myself and about my reading and collecting that are a little bit different. One thing I love about the show is it really makes you think about these things. But let's get right to it. Here's something really cool. I was really happy to get this and support this. It's called Bad Cop versus Good Cop, Fury Road. And this is done by the father and son team of Calvin Hennick and Niall Hennick. And Niall is 10 years old. He's the artist on the book. So Niall, at age 10, did the whole comic. You can see the work here, and his father wrote it. They were there together, and they had this here. Again, it's basically photocopied, and just photocopied pages stapled together. I love this sort of thing. It's not the first time. If you look at some of my previous conventions, I went to a show in Vermont 2 years ago, where there was an 8-year-old kid who had a comic that he had done that I traded my Crimebusters issue for. So I love encouraging the next generation of creators, and I'm looking forward to reading this. It seems like a lot of fun. Next up, I don't know how to pronounce this creator's name, so I apologize in advance. It's Maria Fotonakis, and it's Red Flag. I've looked through this. I haven't had a chance to read all of it, although I did read about the first half of it. And it's basically about people leaving Earth and going to a new colony, and a person dreaming of getting off Earth and finally following that dream. So I was excited to get this. Now I also got this comic here. It's called Warhausen, and it's sort of a wrestler superhero mashup. This is by a writer by the name of Jason Doring. Now, a lot of the people at Mice are part of the Boston Comics Roundtable, which I'm also part of. That's a group of people who make their own comics in the Boston area. I'm going to talk about them more in a little bit. And we sort of are like a support group. We also collaborate on things, so it's really a great community. So I've met Jason before. We've actually tabled together before, and so I've seen some of his other comics. But this is a new one that actually successfully funded on Kickstarter, and so I hadn't seen this one. I like the look of it. I really like the logo. And Jason's a writer, so he hired a group of artists to work on this. Megan Huang is, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing any of these names correct, is the interior artist. And then there's Benamino Del Vecchio does the art for the backup story, and cover artist is Lauren Moran. And so I was excited to get this. I was happy to support Jason. Again, I've seen him in shows before. I have looked through some of his other comics, but this is a new one, just recently successfully funded on Kickstarter. I missed the Kickstarter, so wrestling fans, you can check this out online. I love yellow covers, so that was a draw as well. Next up is a really interesting comic. It's called Modern Times. The Secret Order, and I believe this is in part by Saeed Lestrade. Now, I say in part because, sorry, I should have been holding this up the whole time so you weren't just looking at me gazing at my own navel. This was a collaboration. It's, as you can see here, it says created by the teens at River's Edge Arts. And so basically, the guy that I got this from, the artist I got this from, is like a mentor teacher there. And so he did about half of the book, and then a whole group of different student artists did the rest of the book. I've got their names here, and I'm going to read them all off because I think it's important to credit these creators. And so it's Anthony Candelario, Nicole Cartagena, Daniel Marino, Brianna Koloff, Anthony Crampert, Alanis Ramos, Selena Vongsamani, and Emily Van Syok. And so it's cool to go through the book because it's a single story with following a certain character, but the art style changes as you go through the book because it's being drawn by different people. So I find that sort of thing really interesting. And this was actually free, but the artist who I got it from was also had some of his work here, and I got this tarot card from him. Um, and I think he's got a really cool style that actually reminds me in some ways of Bill Sienkiewicz. I think you can see what I'm talking about there. So that was really cool. I had a nice conversation with him. He follows Crimebusters my Instagram feed. So I'm wearing my Trixie shirt for my character Trixie, and he actually recognized it, which is the first time that's happened. So that was very exciting for me. Okay, so Boston Comics Roundtable. I've mentioned this comic before. It's called Boston Powers, and it's here's issue 2. I picked this up today. Boston Powers is an anthology that we do at the Boston Comics Roundtable. Here's the BCR logo up here, which is superhero stories set in Boston, and it's in all ages. So it's something it's appropriate for kids. Some of the stories are actually written or drawn by kids. And I have a story in issue 3, so I've shown off my copy before, and I already had issue 1 because I backed the Kickstarter for issue 1, but I missed issue 2, and then issue 4 just came out. Now, depending on when you're watching this, the Kickstarter for issue 4 may still be live. I'll put the link below. The Kickstarter is actually to back issues 4, 5, and 6. And I have a new story that's supposed to be in issue 5, but it hasn't been published yet. So if you back that Kickstarter, I believe there's a pledge level, a couple maybe, where you can choose to get issue 5 when it comes out. But I don't know when that's going to be. The artist is currently still working on it. But I was really happy to get the 2 issues I was missing. I'm looking forward to, of course, issue 5 and 6 when it comes out. It's really fun to work on these. It's fun to see the stories by the other people. And there's some really cool stuff in here. So this is a project that I'm really pleased to be part of. Finally, there's 2 books that I got. They're graphic novels. And these are people that I follow on Instagram. And so I wanted to get these books for a while. And so when I saw they were going to be there today, I was very excited. I went there specifically just to get as much stuff from different people as I could, but specifically to buy these 2. The first is the artist, writer, the creator is Joel Christian Gill. And he has a series of graphic novels called Tales of the Talented Tenth. And this one tells the story of Robert Smalls, who is a Civil War hero who basically stole a Confederate warship and sailed it back out through Confederate waters to the Union side. Really looking forward to digging into this. He had a lot of really cool stuff. As you can see, this Black history in action, true adventures of amazing African Americans. He has another series called Strange Fruit, series of graphic novels. My wife bought Talented Tales of the Tenth #2, which has a completely different story about a woman, a Black woman who is a pioneering motorcycle enthusiast and rider. So I'm looking forward to reading both of them. I don't have the first book yet, but I was really excited to get this. And I can't wait to dive into it. I'm a history buff, Civil War in particular. So I'm really excited for this. And then finally, this is by Desmond Reed. It's called The Cola Pop Creamies. And this is a book that, again, I follow him on Instagram, and he's been posting full pages on Instagram. So I've actually read what's basically the first issue. If you get this very thick collection, it has the equivalent of like 4 or 5 full issues, and then in between are sort of short vignettes with the characters that tie them together thematically. His style is you can see some of it on the interiors in black and white, which may be hard to believe given how colorful this is, but I want to show you some of his art because it's stylized to the point of being abstract almost at points. It's very iconic. For those of you who have read um, understanding comics, you know, the sort of the scale, and it's exactly my sort of thing. You know, the pages like this, where everything is rendered, um, where it's almost the art almost becomes graphic design, and I absolutely love it. I love that sort of thing. I've talked about this before, but that's how my taste in art bends anyway for comics. You know, I'm less a fan of the photorealism and the hyperrealism of people like Neil Adams. I'm much more in the camp of the highly stylized light and shadow people like Alex Toth and Darwin Cook and people like that. And so this is like even further into sort of being stylized and again a lot of iconography and design, and I love it. And I read this already after I got home today with this. I read it and it's great. It's excellent. It's very melancholy for me. It was great character studies of all of his characters, and I really, really thought it was good. So again, it's the Cola Pop Creamies. It's by Desmond Reed, and for me, I thought it was excellent. So those are some of the things I got today. So if you have any thoughts on any of the stuff that you've seen, any of these cool indie books, again, check out. I recommend checking out the Cola Pop Creamies, Tales of the Talented Tenth, by Joel Christian Gill, and all the other cool stuff that I showed today. Check out all of that stuff. And just, you know, I love mice. I wish that I could have gone both days, but I really wish that the pandemic were over for so many reasons. And one of them is I really want to get back to the full scale mice where you can get more than 100 and just people that are there because they love comics so much that they are compelled to make them themselves. That's what it's all about. So let me know what you think. And thanks for joining me on this adventure. And I'll see you next time.